once again to Mearachd, episode 6. And where do we rejoin the party?
In Mearachd.
But what happened in the last episode?
There was a lot of flooding.
We got out of the woods with the mantis, and we encountered a ranger, and he checked our papers, and we told him about the tiger, and we were really tired. And then we got food. Erasmus got a compass and information on how to read a compass, and we got details on what to do to not be appealing to predators, and we rested up, and then went to find the bat, but instead found the spider. And we go to class and get lectured on alignment, and we have to research alignments to determine our own and guess that of one party member and write a paper.
Okay.
We also were told about the bats. Apparently they're acting unusual. They are like harder to track and that sort of thing. And so it might be harder to find a bat than we know, but they said that if they would pay, I think, extra if we brought it back alive. So, and then also in class we were talking about, the professor used the example of lycanthropy to illustrate how, good people might sometimes not do good things and bad people might do good things, that kind of thing.
That alignment is more about our ideals and values than just our behavior.
Yeah, and we went to the library to research, and there was not really a lot of books on it. It was sort of a gray area. There was a book with, questions that we could answer that are supposed to help determine our alignment.
Yeah, those questions that I don't have. I knew there was a project I was supposed to have for myself.
It has only 9 questions, and it basically goes like, are you lawful good? Are you lawful neutral?
Nah, Steve's about to load up BuzzFeed quizzes.
Those things are never correct.
They sure aren't.
They're
just random for fun quizzes.
The book, how to find your alignment, just says consult your character sheet.
No.
Just a picture of a character sheet and an arrow to the spot where alignment is at. Check here.
So I think what matters here is, what does it mean? Let's start with this. What does it mean to each of you to be good? Can each person give me one answer that describes what a good character would do or would want?
Are you going to call on us in order?
No. You guys can offer up as you might come to them. Go ahead, Jess.
I say that good is about putting others before yourself, being selfless.
Who else? What are some things that a good person would do, though? How do you define selfless? Can you just simply appear selfless and that will make you a good person?
No, I think it's more about, when there's a situation that comes up, you try to help someone without thinking of reward or personal gain. It's kind of hard to do, completely, because we're all kind of wired to think about ourselves in some ways, but, it's not just about appearances or it's not just about what you are trying to show others. It's about, who you truly are.
What's in your heart?
Exactly.
What are some things that, as a person who is good, might kind of act as an indicator to identify you to other people as being good?
You do the thing that's right for the situation, even when it's not the easy option.
What else?
Trying to make sure you, not do no harm necessarily, but do the least harm possible given the situation, so that you're actually thinking things through and not just acting on instinct.
Recognizing that, sometimes there's unintended consequences. So sometimes, you can't do things that might outwardly seem good, but might have unintended bad consequences.
So I'd like to step back for a second to what Whitney said, because a good character might actually act on instinct more than they might act on thinking about something. If somebody is intrinsically good, if they are a person who is sincerely motivated by the needs and wants of other people, don't you think that in a circumstance where someone is in danger, they might not think about the consequences to themselves or potentially to like other things around them? They might simply be concerned with the life of the other person? Or do you think it does naturally require thought beforehand?
I mean, I guess it depends, like, if you're in a crisis situation, but I think still, like, there has to be some thought process to show, you know, that so that you make sure that you are making the right decision. You're not just relying on your immediate thought, because even if you identify as good, like, as Jess was saying, there are unintended consequences. So it's like, oh, well, if that person's in danger, I should go save them. But you have to think also, could that put more people in danger or whatever it is?
Now, how does this compare to evil? And can I hear from somebody who's not Jess and Whitney this time?
I mean, we always disagree on what we think alignments are, so I don't know.
Sure, this is a free-form discussion, though, because this doesn't have groundwork. And this is all up to what all of you think, in this particular case, as your characters.
Killing people indiscriminately. That's an evil thing.
How would a good person perceive death versus an evil person? Like the need to end the life of a person.
A good person would see it as a mercy, an evil person would see it as pleasure.
So a good person would feel it right and just to kill someone, regardless of the circumstances, or would the circumstances have to matter?
Well, yeah, like if the thing is suffering and can't recover or something like that, sure.
What if the thing were something that had made mistakes and was being misguided? And the person that was fighting them knew that. Do you think they should take special precaution to give them a second chance if they're good?
Nope.
Okay. Does everybody else agree with that opinion?
I mean, if they're neutral good, maybe, but I mean, as far as just simply good, no.
I feel like a good aligned person would, it would not be quick to take a life if there was any other way to avoid it. But,
Right, like they're not supposed to be doling out justice themselves.
Yeah.
Well, justice is a little different. So the idea of doling out justice isn't necessarily the difference between good and evil. That's more so about the difference between law and chaos, being the person who makes the determination between what a person's judgment should be. A chaotic person might more so determine that they should be bringing the person to justice, whether that be murdering them or simply incarcerating them in their own private prison. They may believe that the legal system doesn't function. So they may still believe, even if they're a good person, that they can be the lawbringer. They may or may not just resort to the termination of someone's life. Would you agree with that or disagree?
Agree.
I would feel like that, personally, I feel like a good aligned character would basically only take a life as a last resort. Like if there was no reasoning with, whatever their opponent was. If there was no way they could prevent them from killing other people, then obviously you have to sometimes defend yourself. But I just don't think that it's something that should be done lightly.
Now, in the party, has anyone outwardly seen characteristics of a good, of someone who may be of a good alignment
Nope.
Within our party, you mean?
within your party.
I mean, I feel like that, someone who goes to the trouble of, you know, growing food and teaching people how to make smoothies, that's kind of a good action. They're thinking of others and their health and, trying to help them live a better life.
But what if part of that is just them promoting their personal agenda?
I'm not making money off these smoothies, bro.
Well, let's think back to the combats that you've been in and how people have responded to the circumstances of each combat. Did anything in there seem to lean closer or further away from the actions of someone good?
Well, I feel like Niev seems good, but then the whole killing the tiger or not killing the tiger made it seem a little, I don't know. I guess I don't always understand obviously it's not just good, but then it's, lawful to chaotic. So I don't know if that could exist within one of those.
Well, I think
arenas.
there you have an interesting blend of where it could go, right? Part of what was brought up in that conversation was the idea that on the one hand, we have an animal that's wounded, and if it's allowed to lay out there and be wounded, something may simply come along and kill it. On the other hand, there is the possibility that some people may have that the animal could get up and potentially survive, and if you kill it there, then it doesn't have the option of being able to survive. But if it doesn't manage to get up, it doesn't have to endure the painful feeling of being consumed by other creatures.
Yeah, it's hard because we don't really know enough about tiger's biology, or based on what condition it is, what would be the overall least harmful option for it and other things around it.
Do you believe, though, that having thought or feelings with regard to that can be an indicator of alignment? Not just the actions taken?
Well, I mean, you basically said it's not just behavior, it's also about ideals and values, so I assume so. I trust what you said. You know about more about this than I do.
Well, I'm trying to ask your characters, because this is, again, sort of a philosophical discussion for your characters in the game to think about. Alignment is, in the world, a philosophy that can be directly perceived, but is hard to judge what makes a person show up that way.
Well, and so in the example of Niev, one thing to consider too is that, she was concerned also for the fact that Charles was really badly hurt, and, concerned that also inaction could lead to a party member dying. I feel like, for instance, with the bat that we had to kill, Niev offered up a prayer for the bat, thanking it for its sacrifice. I feel like that, specifically in her culture, that they don't take life lightly, but if they do, they try to use all of the parts. And in the case of both the bat and the tiger, of course we didn't really kill the tiger, but in the case of the bat, we weren't able to carry it back or use what it had for resources, which is part of why, she offered a prayer kind of asking the bat to forgive her. And, basically she doesn't relish killing any living creature, but if it's necessary, especially to protect her party, she will do it. And ultimately, when we decided that the tiger would not be a further threat, she didn't say, oh no, we need to kill it. It was like, okay, if our consensus is it's not a threat, then let's just leave it be, kind of deal.
And then how do your characters feel about the difference between the aspects of law and chaos? What does the concept of being lawful look like to them?
not just following the laws, but actively looking to find out all the laws.
Okay.
I feel like a lawful character tries to, for the most part, follow the laws. There may be certain circumstances where, and there's an unjust law that they can't follow or something like that. But for the most part, I see a lawful character as being very like, there's not a whole lot of shades of gray. It's more like the law says this, so this is what I'm going to do kind of deal. Whereas a chaotic character is more like, they value like having personal freedoms over the law. There's more flexibility, I guess, to work within their belief system. There's shades of gray with a chaotic character.
Can a lawful person desire personal freedoms?
Sure. I feel like law and chaos is more about actions than maybe intent, because you could desire, the freedom, but not act on it because you are, bound to the law kind of deal.
Well, so one of the things that the professor would have talked about was the idea that take away the concept of law and consider it more of a personal desire for, like, overlying structure and a willingness to accept that structure in whatever form it has, because you have an understanding that the structure is implicit to an organized society, versus the opposite end, the idea that things should be decided in each case on a case-by-case basis, that people should have a right to actions, and the actions afterwards should be processed based on what the will of the people is in that specific case.
And then neutral is just somewhere in the middle of that.
Neutral people would often be the kind of people who would sort of vacillate between the two. They recognize a great value for structure, but believe that, like, without having the right level of taking time in each specific circumstance, you may not necessarily be getting the full picture of what is necessary according to terms.
Law is a good thing and freedom is a good thing, but in neutrality, you realize that the law should never crush the individual and the individual should never crush everyone else. So it's seeking this balance between, the group and the individual.
Does that mean your character's neutral?
Maybe. We're not supposed to tell, right?
You're not supposed to tell. This is supposed to be you figure it out and you make an assumption.
I remember last session I thought you said we could ask questions, so I didn't realize.
You can ask questions, but you're asking
questions.
you're asking the character's questions as your character. You're not
Yeah.
asking the player questions as the player. The character does
but
not
as-
actually know what its alignment is.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no place you just go check in on what your alignment is.
Why not? It's the alignment story.
Because most people in the world are of the mindset that alignment is not necessarily always static. That lots of people will often maintain a road down the same alignment, but it is possible in life for you to learn new things and to change the path of which you believe. That you're not aligned at birth, you are aligned by the actions that happen in your life. And so that may actually, by giving people the ability to see their alignment, it may alter the decisions they might make, because they are stuck in an assumption that this is the alignment I am, so these are the choices I have to make.
So, something that I'm just wondering as far as alignment goes in the in-game world. Okay, so you go to a store. How do you know whether you're able to wear like a robe of the evil Archmagi?
You, in a lot of ways, don't. You can't just go in and buy a robe of the Archmagi. In most cases, robes of the Archmagi are made, and it is in the process of their making that they are given the alignment of their creator.
And also, like, as far as creating magic items, you can create them with a restriction to an alignment. Like, you have no idea.
You
like,
actually
what sort of restriction you're
you
putting on it?
cannot manually create the restriction in alignment. The restriction alignment is a side effect of failing to properly produce the item, and that then gives you a discount to the item. Or the item has implicit properties that make it aligned in one way or another to a person. A person could, in fact, craft a weapon which is holy, not realizing that this weapon could hurt them itself. Thinking that, like, oh, I've got some, like, outsiders I've got to kill. I've got some demons that are coming. This weapon will give me a better advantage over them. Failing to realize that their own selfishness is the demise that they'll feel from the weapon once they create it.
Alright, sounds good.
Although I think in order to cast that, you have to use protection from an alignment that you would not normally have access to use anyway in that particular case.
Yeah, there has to be, in aligned things, there has to be usually the components to metagame, just to ask. When item creation in this, so if you were doing aligned things, you would have to cast the appropriate protection.
That's correct.
Is that, yeah.
All right.
So the problem with ethically writing out good or evil, right, is they often rely on customs and mores. So, you know, for most elves, freedom is the greatest good. Whereas a dwarf society, duty is the greatest good. This does not mean they're both not good. It just means that their ideas are there. So the conflict comes between the two, whereas where an elf like myself craves the freedom, you know, to express oneself, a dwarf may think, well, this is, you know, unless it aids society, it has no value.
To you, that is a good versus evil aspect, as opposed to a law versus chaos aspect.
That is a law versus chaos aspect, but that's where, when defining good, we have to realize that, you know, the principles you are reflecting, whether you're an elf or raised in a particular culture, these things can be very different. You know.
So you believe that a dwarf could read the alignment of something different than an elf could read the alignment of something using a read alignment spell? That it's possible that it could come up incorrect or different.
I think they would see it differently, yes.
Okay.
So what is it for orcs then?
It would depend, because orcs are not static individuals, but if I was to go by the stereotype, right? You know, an orcish good might be what brings the most, you know, for quality of might, right? Although, you know, there are orcs now, even, you know, now that we've gotten I hate to use the metagame Pathfinder, orcs are no longer brainwashed hooligans, which they certainly were in almost every other edition of D&D. So, you know, orcs generally were not capable of being good in any kind of way.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they were almost always evil. And now they've given orcs shade. Same thing with goblins. But, you know, seeing myself as my character's person, it would be about promoting a certain level of harmony. Would be good.
Okay, so this is kind of what I'm trying to get at here, is that as individuals, I haven't heard anything from Michelle, but that's okay. I think this is a relatively rough concept for somebody who's relatively new to the game. But what I'm trying to kind of point out here is that as individual characters, and even as individual people, coming up with alignment can be difficult at times. And so the magic to identify it is also difficult to understand. Many for years have worked to comprehend it. Many believe that people can implicitly believe they are something and come up with something totally different, to a point that they themselves might argue tooth and nail, but the magic might show otherwise, because the magic can see deeper than what the person itself can see. So that is echoing, by the way.
Okay.
I am.
How about now? I
No.
have it off completely. I thought maybe I'd listen. I don't know. I was thinking. Sorry, I put some music on and then realized. Oh yeah, that's not.
So, what are some thoughts then about some of your party members and where they might lie on this alignment scale?
All right, so I'm probably lawful good. I had put together that party to encourage everyone to work together before we had that big fight, and at the same time at that party, I probably learned that Nikolai's chaotic evil, because once he found out there was no food, he just tried to ruin everybody's fun and left.
Okay.
Maybe neutral evil. Yeah, probably more neutral evil than chaotic evil.
Okay.
Was I at this party?
Yeah, this was where the board game was played.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Remember we made up because you were mad at me for getting you that F?
Oh, that party. I was like,
Yeah, you were thinking of the party that none of you are invited to?
yeah, I really was. I was like, how did that go on?
All right, well, since
I get into the party the rest of us weren't invited to.
since she hasn't said anything yet, Constog, how do you feel about the alignment of at least one of your party members and what they could be, and why?
And if you choose your sister, it's kind of cheating.
I mean, they're different people.
Yeah, but they've been raised their whole lives together.
Not entirely true, but okay.
Oh man. This is fascinating stuff. Steve, I'm tempted to sit back and let everybody else debate and see where this goes.
Well, I think later there'll be a show for that I'm going to put together. But
Oh, nice.
in the meantime, Constog.
Well, since it's cheating to pick one person, and the only person I can really think of, I don't want to say because that would be rude.
Bring your mic a
What?
little closer. That was a little soft.
Well, since one of the two people I could think of an alignment for would technically be cheating, and the other one,
I'm
I feel like
teasing you.
would be
Say
kinda
whoever you
rude.
want.
So you're just going to write your paper but not say it? Because you still have to give a presentation on it.
a presentation. No, this is just a paper.
No, it is just a paper.
Thought my notes were wrong for a second.
You have a heart attack.
Okay, so Constog does not want to discuss her thoughts. So how about, should I choose randomly, or does the next person want to volunteer?
Random
It'd be
tribute.
fun. Yeah, random.
Okay.
And actually random.
Spoken. My dice just went all over my lap. That's pretty great.
Sounds pretty random to me.
Yeah, that's
Let's
that's
use that
what-
roll.
Well, none of them landed in a way that I can identify a roll. Sure, some dice ended up on the floor too.
No! Oh yeah, definitely sounded like it.
Well, I got one of them.
The Caltrop D4s are on the floor.
All right, so Jess, you choose first while I try to find this other side of my D100.
All right. So I'm going to write my paper on Trent. So my observations of Trent differ slightly than his observations about himself.
Shocking.
Well, they might.
So based on my understanding and kind of our discussion of like chaotic and lawful and all of that, I would say that he's probably chaotic aligned because he seems to like, basically he would choose like his freedom over, a lawful alignment. And I mean, I don't see him so much as a good alignment because he's kind of selfish. So, just kind of based on what I'm thinking like maybe chaotic evil or something like that.
Okay.
Holy fuck.
Selfishly healing up the entire party.
Well, you're doing it because it's part of your classwork. You're still getting something out of it.
And the risk
I'm
of
not-
dying in the woods because you're not healing the party seems like a pretty
Yeah.
rational idea. I'd imagine would be part of your character's thought process there.
And then, in character, you know, I thought we were supposed to also decide what, or kind of choose in character, like what our character would think they are.
Mhm.
Is that right?
That's correct.
So then, that part of the paper, Niev would write probably neutral good, because she kind of feels like there's a, she's not like overly lawful, and she doesn't, you know, she just kind of sees herself maybe as a neutral good character.
Okay. All right. So it is between Whitney and Charles, or Nikolai and Erasmus.
I'm also putting in my paper how evil Nikolai is because of the anger issues.
Erasmus.
So I'm adding that to my paper also.
Okay, so I'm gonna make sure now. She has already chosen Trent.
You can choose whoever you want. Multiple people can choose the same person. Because this is a paper that you're putting in, so it is private.
Randomly roll for me. Make Constag 1 to 2. You know what I mean? And then
Okay.
I'll work from there.
Yeah, hold on. Oops, I forgot. There's only 4 of them. Let me just roll a d4.
No problem.
Because I included you, and it's like, wait, that doesn't work. So this would be Constag.
All right, the dream team. Me and Michelle.
So how do you feel about Constag's alignment?
Well, if quiet was an alignment, I believe
I know, right?
would have it.
Quiet,
Or
neutral.
library? Like, is that an option?
No, what like it's true neutral because she never has an opinion on anything?
I'm sure she
So,
has opinions.
she has
just doesn't
opinions.
She's
share
voiced her
them.
opinions a
Yeah.
couple of times.
I haven't
Well-
heard any opinions, so I'm going.
I think that's more about listening skills.
I believe that because of, their druidical naturey stuff, they're all about the balance. I would say the back end, because the front end is the good and evil, to use the older term. The back end is definitely neutral. Now, she's, has really risen to try to think of ways to help the party, which would lead me to believe, based on her actions only, that she is neutral good. Veering into true neutral.
Okay. That will leave us with Whitney.
I think Niev is also neutral good. It seems like she's
Party neutral good.
concerned about, I don't know, like harmony and balance and taking care of other people, but there's, I don't know, there's an air of like not just all about structure, there's some kind of fluidity to it, that it's not all prescriptive.
Yeah, I'm still annoyed that she tricked me into thinking that there was some sort of party going on. That sounds like a chaotic, neutral type of action to me.
I stand by that was a party in my mind.
I'm sorry, what did Erasmus think his own alignment was?
Erasmus sees himself as a neutral good person, but I know role playing. I'm veering wildly into lawful good at this rate.
Wait, what you said? You thought right now? He thought what? Sorry, I was trying to type it, and my brain like looped itself.
Erasmus sees himself as neutral good,
Okay.
but is a little lie.
Okay.
His personal comfort level of order gets in the way of the neutrality.
All right, and Nikolai, how do you think about yourself?
I don't want to say neutral good because that's what we've been saying about everything, but yeah,
But it's what he feels.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well,
some things.
Go ahead.
I was going to say some people wear their alignment whether they mean to, and some people wear their alignment because they mean to. Right? If I came here with who's the paladin god, Steve?
On her.
So if I came here wearing on her's regalia, there would be a justifiable reason to believe that they're neutral good or a lawful good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have 2 druids in here, and they tend to be about the balance. And, so it's very easy to see an overwhelming neutrality.
And they believe in that organized structure because there can only be one archdruid.
Jesus. I hate that mechanic so much. You know that?
All right. Well.
Oh god, that freaked me out.
One way or another, Constog. What? What happened?
Oh, I think it was a piece of dust from the fan. It just blew over right by the desk, and I thought it was a dry bug.
Oh.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
I thought you really had a strong feeling about the archdruid thing. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a hassle when you get to upper levels, but it's not that bad.
Constog, you've got to give an answer then, either way, because this is going on your paper, and everybody else did theirs public.
Okay, so just basically I'm writing this in my paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say that Trent would be chaotic. I think chaotic neutral. I don't think he's entirely a super evil and selfish person, but I don't feel like he's always interested in the good of the people around him.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the stuff he does depends on what the situation is, rather than the stuff that we're supposed to follow. And I think for Constog, she would think that she's just neutral.
So true neutral?
Yeah, she doesn't feel like she's really that good.
Okay. All right, well, you'll get the results of this paper after our break.
Oh, well, that's better than next session.
Yeah, it is a lot better than the next session. It's really early for me to end.
Let's go to we're breaking early.
Well, no, I thought we would just move on to something else, and then you just keep up the suspense.
Let's take a short break. Yeah, and we'll be back, and I'll get some pie.